Hey guys, Joseph Baba Ifa here coming at you with a new video on Eshu Alaguana. For all of those who haven't had the opportunity yet, please be sure to subscribe. Press that subscribe button. Joseph Baba Ifa is coming out with new videos all the time, fresh material, new material. And here we go on Eshu Alaguana. First off, we love to delve into names, right? It really helps us understand the nature of the deity that we're interacting with. So Eshu Alaguana, once again a compound word. When we break it down, we could be like Eshu Alaguana, right? Now, when you see the b, it could be referring to like when we say bobo or like everything, right? So the first translation I really like to incorporate is Eshu Alagbana could be Eshu is the owner of all the roads or the owner of the road, right? And it really makes reference to him because he is associated with the paths. And as we delve into other aspects of him, we're going to see why he's kind of everywhere, right? We have Eshu Alabobona, we have Eshu Alagbana, which means it could also mean Eshu is on the path or installed on the path, right? Or is present on the path. So kind of the same thing. You know, you're going to hear some translations where it's Alawana. Now, that could be, a breakdown of the GB once again within the language because, Yoruba people speak in a way that's so fluid that, the GB kind of just flows through and it can turn into like a W sounding type tonal value type thing. But usually it's the B and, it could be Labana, which could also be he who presents or he who is present on all of the paths. So kind of the same thing all together. Eshu Alagbana, right? He is first identified within the literature as the slave of Yemaya or the personal Eshu of Yemaya. So the people who have this received may more than likely be children of Yemaya or even Olokun, right? Because it has a lot to do with water and the ocean and these two deities. And a lot of people say that when we look at when Yemaya came down from heaven, this was the Eshu that she either came down with, or in my opinion, was the first one that she interacted with and had to provide sacrifice. A lot of people say, no, the Orishas came down with said Eshu. I can respect that, but when we look at literature, even in the Odu of Eyobe, Orumila didn't come down with Eshu. He interacted with Eshu once he kind of arrived on Earth and ran up to the crossroads, and Eshu was like, do you have anything for me? And then he gives them the famous rooster, and they become inseparable friends. So in my opinion, it was the one that she interacted with first, right? So that's the first aspect of him. He's identified as the assistant or a slave of Yemaya, right? I don't like the term slave because Eshu's nobody's slave, but her counterpart, as far as her Eshu counterpart. So that's the first thing. When we read about what's online for Eshu Alaguana, you're gonna see that they're associated. You're gonna see the term the anima sola. Associated with Eshu Laguana. And it speaks of the lonely spirit. Now, it is interesting that this was syncretized with Eshu Alaguana because Eshu Alaguana has a lot to do with the spirit realm. You're going to notice the people who have this Eshu, they're very spiritual, might even be spiritists, or they may even be mediums. And, this Eshu really helps channelize that energy so that it doesn't become a hindrance and always remains a support system, right? So, based on that, if we look at one of the stories that speaks about Eshu Laguana, it's in Owanimei, right? And there's a pataki in Owanimei that speaks of Awo Mayure, right? It speaks of a gentleman who was a flute player, right? Now, there's various versions of the story, but some of the versions say, he was trying to better his luck. Others say that he was under spiritual attack and he had a lot of spiritual influences around him that weren't really under control. So what he ended up doing was divination, where this Odu was revealed, where he had to perform sacrifice to Eshu in his manifestation of Alaguana, right? And when he went to Eshu and performed the sacrifice, Eshu said, what's the problem? And Owanimeji basically told him, I'm having these influences. I have a lot of enemies as well, and they're attacking me, and I have no way of defending myself. All I have is my flute, right? So Eshu Laguana said, I could help you. Now that you've sacrificed to me, let me borrow the flute, and I'll handle the rest. Where Eshu Laguana started playing the flute, but when he did it, he let out certain tones and sounds that basically directed Eggun, or the spirits, right? To be able to, mobilize them in a way where they wouldn't interrupt Owanimeji's life, and at the same time use them to defend him against his enemies, right? It always reminded me when I would read this pataki about the I'm not sure, I think it was the Pied Piper or something like that, when he would play it and the rats would start doing everything that he wanted them to. So, but once everything was done, or I think the flute player got rid of all the rats. It's been a long time since I've read the story. But once Eshu Alaguana was done, and another thing, I mean, before we even delve into the rest of this, it really shows the influence of Ifa and all of these old world stories, even on modern literature, right? We look at a story like this, and then, some 1,000 years later, even though it's been hundreds of years since, probably, we have the story of the flutist and the rats, and I've always found that very interesting, the similarity between the stories of Ifa and even modern culture, and just realizing that more than likely Ifa influenced a lot of these modern things that we see now or even read now. And once Alaguana was done with the flute and whatnot, he basically accepted Owanimeji as his son, as his devotee, as his follower, and said, whenever you need me, you can just use the flute, right? Or have the flute by me. So for those who have Eshu Alaguana, Owanimeji speaks heavily of the flute or the flutist, and through the flute and sacrifice to Eshu Alaguana, he was able to get his spirits under control, have the spirits defend him against his enemies, and have this real protection by way of Eshu. So if I had this Eshu, even if I wasn't Owanimeji, it really depends on what you want to apply. I might have a flute by him. Because it was his power item, and that's how he kind of directed all the spirits and things like that. And the flute's a very old item. I mean, when we look at the musical influence of Ifa, I mean, the flute is even spoken of in the Odu Obeche as well. So it is a legitimate instrument, and it's been played for centuries, right? Eons, whatever you want to call it. So that's the first story. So that one really touches on him kind of being the director of Eggun, and really being the guy who sends the spirits in the directions they're meant to go and what they're meant to do, and that's really his role. So it kind of touches on the anima sola, because that anima sola is an energy that's really associated with the spirits and a lack of spiritual progression. Eshu helped the muertos, and the spirits recognized that Owanimei was their ally and their devotee, and because of it, he was able to, convince them to help him, right? Which he was deserving of, because he did perform it well and have good conduct. He wasn't looking for problems. So that's one right there. I have heard versions or read things about Eshu Alaguana where they say that, it's the version of Eshu where he chained Oya to the wall, and he left her there to kind of, basically rot. I have read that story possibly in other signs, but I haven't really been able to corroborate it with this Eshu, or say that, that is Eshu Alaguana who did that. In the stories I've read, it doesn't mention a path, so I'm not sure where that connection came from. The literature isn't readily available. So it speaks of that. Eshu Alaguana also has a lot of characteristics that are very good for protection, especially against witchcraft, right? If we look in the Odu Obewenye, or Obewehin, was where Eshu Alaguana helped Orumila defend himself against the witch doctors, right? A lot of people like to say the paleros. I'm not a big fan of blaming everything on palo. I don't know why, but anytime Orumila had an enemy that was doing witchcraft to him, the first thing they wanted to say was he was a palero. The paleros were not always Orumila's enemies, right? He actually worked with them on various occasions. Even in Edibere, they kind of became allies, you know what I'm saying? So, but he was basically going to war with the witch doctors and the land over, right? And what happened was the head shaman over there, I guess we could call him, or even some people say the head Osain priest, even then, was sending witchcraft to him and really messing things up. He was making it difficult. And then apart from that, they were going to send an army to basically dethrone Orula. Orula performed divination. Obewehin was revealed, and it said that he had to perform sacrifice to Eshu in his manifestation of Alaguana. And when he did this, and Orumila utilized the Ierosung powder, Eshu said, on the day of the battle, you're going to blow this. Or there's some versions where Eshu took it and did it himself, and I'll take care of the rest. Just survive. So the day of the battle, the head guy came out and with his army, and Orumila was pretty much by himself. And they let the powder loose, and then the Ierosung basically blocked people's vision and things like that. And Eshu started taking advantage and kind of weeding his way through the battleground. And he went right up to the head, the head warlock or what have you, the head magician, and he killed him right there. And there's some versions where he decapitated him. And then at that moment, the dust kind of settled, the Ierosum kind of settled, and right when the army was about to attack Orula, Eshu yelled out, we won, because he was holding up the head of the other general. And when they looked at Orula that he hadn't moved, and they were like, who is this guy? They were like, no, we don't want no problems. So they all kneeled and they decided to devote their lives to Ifa. And that's how Eshu Alaguana saved Orula from witchcraft and apart from that attack, right? So I love that story, by the way. I have a couple godchildren who are Obewenye, and that's probably one of the first stories I usually talk about. It's much more complex when we delve into it, but just to kind of go over it quickly. But in Obewenye, it was identified that Eshu Alaguana is good for the defense of witchcraft. He's good for the defeating of enemies. Based on that, if someone has Eshu Alaguana, a frequent offering you want to be giving to him is Ierosum, because it was, especially when you feel like you're under spiritual attack or you're having conflicts with people undeservingly, you could put Ierosum on top of Eshu Alaguana and that'll really handle things for you, or even blow it out the front door. Obviously have this prepared by your Baba and things like that. So it's effective, but Eshu really saved Orula there. And Eshu moves in a way where you really can't detect him. A lot of people speak of that. Oh, you can't tell when I send my muerto or all these other things. And really immature talk, because we shouldn't be doing any of that anyway. Spiritual warfare is the most unproductive thing. It's almost as unproductive as speaking about politics, right? Or trying to convert people to other religions. It really doesn't help anybody. And Eshu kind of was able to defend Orula in a way where there was no negative recompense. And, he was able to, disable his enemies. So he's really good for when it comes from the protection of enemies and witchcraft, right? So it speaks of that. Eshu Alaguana. There's another story that I want to delve into that is spoken of in the Odu of Idirosum or Odirosum, where Eshu Alaguana and Babaluaye were best friends, right? They were homies. And what would happen is they would live together and stuff like that. They were in college together. I don't know, however you want to call it, but they were roomies. And Babaluaye actually got married. He started maturing, started looking into life, and he found a beautiful woman and a wonderful woman to marry, and her name was Oshun. But being that, he loved Eshu Alaguana so much, he's like, man, this is my friend, I got a big house, he can just kind of live behind the door. And Oshun was like, yeah, sure, he's a respectful guy, he's cool, and, he was living there. But the problem with Eshu Alaguana was he was very messy. And, his offerings and stuff like that, or he'd get drunk and fall asleep behind the door, or eat and not, take things to the garbage. And Oshun really got frustrated with that, like really bad, because she was kind of a clean freak. She liked a nice house, she liked things to look elegant, etc. Knowing a couple daughters of Oshun, I know how clean they are. So I gotta take this story, this story's word for it. And she went to her husband Babaluaye and said, I'm really tired of your friend. Like, he's gross. He doesn't clean up after himself. He's covered in blood and feathers, and he's dirty, and he stinks. And Babaluaye felt really bad, but he knew it was the truth. So he went to Eshu Alaguana and he said, hey bro, I need you to kind of pick up, because my wife is giving me heat and I got enough issue. I don't need her, getting mad at me. So either you clean up your act or I got to kick you out. And he kind of gave Eshu Alaguana like 24 hours to figure it out. And Eshu Alaguana kind of had this moment where he's like, yo, I got to change my life. And he cleaned himself up. He started being more organized with his offerings and things like that. And he really stopped being a nuisance to Babaluaye and Ochum's home. And Ochum ended up loving him like a brother-in-law, and he protected the home, and Babaluaye was happy because his best friend and his wife were happy, and it was a really beautiful situation. So when we look at Eshu Alaguana, a couple different aspects of him, Ifa, once again, Eshu represents transitions. So it speaks of maybe if you have Eshu Alaguana, you had a past, you had different habits, you know, and it may have been difficult for you to be able to transition into other ones. That's what this Eshu helps with, realizing what we're doing wrong, taking critical advice and constructive criticism, and changing our lives and being better for not only us, but those around us, right? And Eshu protects the home. Eshu maintains the home hygienic. And I'm not only referring to, you know, the bag of chips you left on the couch, spiritual hygiene, making sure everything in the house is the way it needs to be, making sure there's not any lingering spiritual influences that are detrimental. Also, this Eshu likes hygiene. No Eshu should ever be completely clean, spotless, because you always want to leave a little bit of blood. But for the most part, you want to maintain his shrine, you know, cleaner than you would the regular one. Laroye, you know, you keep him kind of dirty, you keep him fed. The couple other ones, they really don't care. But with Eshu Alaguana, he likes to be somewhat hygienic, right? So it speaks of that. Eshu Alaguana, really great Eshu, spiritual Eshu. You know, this is the information we've been able to amass on him. Have a lot of God kids that have this Eshu. Really good. He's quite a character in Ifa. He's very well known. He manifests a lot. A lot of the information I see online on him is a little bit generic. And people, this is why I'm doing the Eshu series, because a lot of people want more information on Eshu and they want to understand him more, you know. And what I think occurred just in general with Ifa is that either people didn't want to touch on these things, and everything I'm touching on, all of it's public information. I mean, these are patakis, right? No sacrilege here, no ceremonial betrayal. Like, I'm not telling you what's in him. I'm not telling you the excessive things. But, you know, stories like this help people who have him understand him more and how to better interact with him more. You know, putting a flute next to him, you know, his ierosum powder, keeping him hygienic, these are not sacrileges. I always want to teach people as much as I ethically can. And I think we've done that with this video because, you know, I haven't seen, if you look up Eshu Alaguana, unless you're actually delving into pataki, these stories and this information on him basically grouped in a way where you can access it all at once. So definitely wanted to have this for my God kids and all my subscribers, and I really hope it provides some clarity and it helps you interact better with your Eshu, which is just going to make life a better overall thing. And especially with this Eshu, when you take care of him correctly, he really brings great things to the home and, you know, a lot of protection. So guys, new video, Eshu Alaguana. I hope you guys really liked it, and thank you once again for all the support. And, you know, here at Botánica Candles and More, we're hoping everybody's safe and everybody's having the happiest of holidays possible based on the situation the world's in. Our doors are always open to you. Whatever you need, you can contact us at 407-440-2086. And we're only a phone call away. So, guys, God bless you. Hope you enjoyed the video. And once again, Joseph Baba Ifa out. Iboru Boya, guys. Take care. Bless.